Cussing, Willie. I was good. Welcome to the Cafe Nightly Show. I'm your host, Goldsmith. It is the 13th of August, 2024, and we're glad to be here. It is a slow Tuesday in August here. We did have its totems get started, and we did have the window for starting your totem end. So we had Thursday into Friday, and from Friday into Saturday, and Saturday into Sunday, Sunday into Monday, and Monday into Tuesday. It's 5 days. That's what you had. Now we get to go on and enjoy our totems for a 30-day cycle. If you didn't get your totems started, why didn't you get your totems started? You had a warning. You were told 5 days, get them started, or they can't get them started. And again, we're going to take a look. We're going to take a look and verify and take a look and say, oh, this is what happens when you don't start your totem in the 5-day cycle you had available to do so. And then we're going to look at the reality of, now that we're in the totem cycle, just keeping our eyes on it, keeping things going. We don't need to get back into the tools and this is how I do some research and figure this out. We're just some reminders of, managing our sleep and not getting upset and just following the schedules and doing the things that we need to do. A reminder to keep things going on our totems. And then we'll look at a couple of things for the sales in the store, which includes you can buy some totem. Haha, it's up for sale now. So theoretically, you had that opportunity when the totem was for sale. If you had a totem you purchased at a time that you didn't get totem drop, you could have got some totem to get started. Wolf Warren, good to see you. Good to see you, KO Ninja. And let's take a look. Let's take a look at a couple other things. Obviously, cosmetic drop. It's a second Tuesday in sizzle season. That's the second cosmetic drop. We'll take a look and see what that looks like. I remember to burn mine in time, so I did get my sizzle season drop this week. We'll take a look at what the drops were, and then that's about it. We're going to just keep our eyes on the prize for the rest of the month, the rest of the week here. Anyways, I don't want to get too into a couple things, but we'll get into a couple things later in the week. If we continue to be so low on the news cycle. But ready to get started here. All views and opinions expressed by myself are mine and mine alone. Shouldn't be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They represent the game, the team of Upland. Guests or contributors we do have their own opinions and welcome to them. It should not be taken. They should not be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They represent the game of the team of Upland. They represent myself, the Goldsmith of the Cafe Nightly Show. Easy enough. Let's take a quick look. Let's just do the thing that lets us see what's going on in the game of Upland and jump in right in the game. Take a look live at what we see if we go to play with some totems, because totems, as we mentioned, we had a 5-day period to get things started. Assets, map assets, totems, search, no totems. Oh, totem. You pluralize it, they're not happy. Singular, there we go. Here's a totem here. In cycle. Well, this was a someone started. Let's see if we find one that someone didn't start. You start this one. In cycle. Good job. Adds in 28 days. This is what we should see. If we start our totem, we should be able to look at our totem and say, in cycle. Ends in 28 days. This was started a couple days ago. Look at this. Good job, people starting your totems. I'm glad these aren't, sleepy totems. These aren't totems that aren't to work. They all should theoretically be started. Oh, this was for sale, so maybe this one's not started. Here it is, in cycle, disqualified. You waited too long. If you're talking about going and buying totems, you can still buy a totem. You just can't do anything with it this cycle. Do we think there's going to be a cycle 3, 4, and 5? Technically, we were told at one point there was going to be. You could hold on to a totem for cycle 3, 4, and 5. You could hold on to them for the R. But cycle 2's entry period, the activation period, the time that you had to get started is over. This totem, again, we're looking at this specific cheetah. The reason why I assumed it wasn't started, because I knew it was for sale. I could see that it was for sale. Went and took a look. And yes, sure enough, this right here, in cycle, disqualified. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you wait more than the 5 days and we get outside of it. But we are the cycle. If you had started your totem, again, you're going to have to feed it on schedule. We did look at my upland.info and how we can use that as a tool. There's other tools out there, of course, but how we can use that as a tool to see what we're supposed to be feeding, how often we're supposed to feed, Once we start feeding our totem, we can come back and feed on that schedule, the right amount every time. And as long as we're doing that, we're moving ourselves towards the end of the cycle with a punch of protem coming back to us, much more protem back than we put in if we're as close to perfect as possible. When you start missing feedings, when you don't feed enough, when you feed way too much, that's where you start having that profit go down, or potentially, and this is a small potential, but it could happen, you could lose some protem out of it because you overfed. And it's, it's easy to overfeed. It's, you don't, if you're using the decimal, which there are decimals, if you use the decimal and you forget to use a decimal, poof, now we put 2,362 instead of 23.62 protem, and poof, we just wasted a bunch of protem. So it is something to keep an eye on as we do go through the month. That is the easiest suggestion. Diabri, good to see you. Everything is great. We'll keep on going and keep on going with the totem cycles here. But again, that is the biggest way you can make that mistake, is the decimal point. If you're using the decimal point, if you're trying to be really precise and you said, oh, I'm supposed to be feeding 23.32, make sure it is a 0.32. Save yourself that heartache of overspending your protem and ending up in a situation where you're at a loss instead of a gain this cycle. The other thing that is really worth noting is there is a benefit, or we should say a penalty for not doing, or a benefit for doing and feeding right in that sweet spot. Does that mean that if you're going to have a significant event, that I have to cancel that significant event because it's right on the feeding time, that sweet spot? No. I would say take a little bit of the penalty. If you're within a couple hours, it seems to be a sliding penalty. So it's different than waiting to the very end of that feeding opportunity, the end of that interval to feed. So that opportunity is there to live your life and still have totems going and still have totems working for you. Jumping back into the announcements, on the announcement side of the game, we did have over in live updates, we had the totem drops. So totem drops are live. We'll take a look at the announcement or the way that little promo video goes. We'll come back into the game of Upwind. We'll see what those look like in the game as we are displayed. Sizzle Season Pass Week number 2 cosmetics are live. Check them out. Drop it for the reveal right here. Boom, boom, boom. Season Pass. We know that we have the rarities. Boom. Block Explorer background stone. Block Explorer overlay lava. And the badge. So lava and stone. Sizzle Season again. When we talk about, and I get the idea of themes. Upwind's done these themes, and this whole fiery theme motif where you get to the back of the pass, and again, I'm gonna say it one more time. I said I wouldn't keep saying it, but it does look like it was pulled from Hearthstone. The art looks different than Upwind's normal style. I guess it's a theme. Upwind went with something. It's different than what we normally see. I would love to see, when we talk about Sizzle Season, things that represent summer. When we talk about Haunted Season, I'd love to see things that represent Halloween time, and not just, for Haunted Season we're gonna do pigs wearing hats, and then now it's all pigs wearing hats instead of things that actually tie to, actually are reminiscent of, actually feel like they tie to the season that we're trying to celebrate, the season that we are in while we are trying to celebrate the season. So that is those are our drops right now. Let's jump into the game and let's take a look at what those look like. Yes, I actually burnt in time this time, so I get to take a look at them and see them. We do have them right over here. So we do see our background for our block explorer. No overlay. Get back to the backgrounds. Almost there. Here they are. I knew we could find them. Here's stone. Sure. That's what the stone looks like. I mean, the interesting thing about the backgrounds, these overlay backgrounds, is if we have a large enough block explorer, some block explorers, keep in mind, are larger than others, covers up most of it. So this is what this looks like. This particular design, I see the cracks to represent the stone. It's really kind of hard to see behind the block explorer And then again, if I come back down to the lava's a little more profound. A little bit, just a little bit. Here it is. The lava's a little more profound. We can see what that looks like here as well. I can still see back here, yes, it looks lava-y. Again, very much covered up with this block explorer is what we're looking at. But yeah, this is something that allows me to represent my block explorer in a little different way. This is my avatar floating around the game of Upwind. People see it as I'm moving around, as I'm drifting into a mint, as I am potentially, traveling for whatever reason, traveling to go pick something up at a meta event. They see, oh, there's the goals, but then they can see how I'm choosing to represent myself at that time. So pretty interesting here. Again, we had 2 drops this week. We see some weeks we're getting 3. I'd love to see 3 more often. But this is kind of the part and parcel here. We don't know exactly what we're going to get. The overall value we're looking at is the expectation of between 2 and 3 drops every week. We want to see some variety. We want to see some of those animated overlays. Those are kind of fun. Just a good mix of things all around. We'll keep our eyes out for the future drops for the rest of the season. That's what we're looking at for today. Otherwise, we don't have a lot else. You got the totem skid to get started here. We can just touch on a couple things, and I'd like to do that when we have so little on the news, when we don't have big official announcements that are up and for us to take a look at. But we'll take a look at some small things. Number one, it does appear, and it was kind of brought out here, that the algorithm that changes the amount of UPX it costs to start a treasure hunt has kind of increased a little bit. We've seen this be something that Upwind's talked about titrating over time. The idea that treasure hunting is ultimately meant to reward people for participating. Those who participate to a certain degree get a higher concentration. Hey, good to see you, Swarley. Get a higher concentration of the rewards, or higher concentration of profitability in the treasure hunting. You can still get some return on going and doing treasure hunting, but it is a declining return the more treasure hunts you do in a day. In a way, it is meant to encourage participation of a larger degree of people instead of a single profit center or a very focused profit center for a small number of people. So I do understand the entire point of doing so. It is a way of saying, yes, you can keep treasure hunting if you want to. It becomes less and less lucrative over time. Go and treasure hunt 5, 10, 15, 20 times. You'll get 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 treasures a day. But keeping on going beyond that is going to potentially put you in a position where that 40th treasure of the day is not going to be as lucrative for you as the first was, because the cost to go and do that treasure hunt was higher. So that is kind of a part of the idea of expanding the participation or having a broader participation. What is going to cause a broader participation is getting treasure hunting back to PC. That's been something that has been a little bit of we're working on it. We're going to come back. We'll get back at some point. As a quick review piece of history, the reason why it had to be taken off is because there was so much use of tools, people using tools on the PC, the accessibility of using tools on the PC that was making it so that there was people who were exploiting the tools to make the treasure hunting easy enough or easier enough that the competitive was significantly skewed, that people were continuing to essentially use treasure hunting like a 1 cent profit center, or as close to 1 cent as humanly possible. It just wasn't being used the way that treasure hunting was meant to be used. It was as the game had kind of put out there, tools weren't supposed to be used, outside tools, in these participatory contests, and obviously kind of went against the rules anyways, but it also made it less fun for the people who weren't using those tools along the way. So we wait to see if Upwind can bring back a PC-based treasure hunting. It does continue to look like the treasure hunting is a smaller and smaller portion of the game. There's other things that Upwind's bringing in. And if Upwind continues to have problems keeping the fairness of treasure hunting or making the treasure hunting work for a broad degree of people, maybe they are intentionally sunsetting it. It does look like they are allowing it to be a smaller portion of the game. They haven't brought it back to PC, which obviously locks a lot of players out. That's what what's most comfortable for a lot of people's hunting. Some people even say they have a hard time hunting on the phone for one reason or another, whether it is physical capabilities or physical abilities, the abilities of their phone versus the abilities of their computer, or if it's just a matter of preference, what they like to do. They don't want to sit there on their phone, glaring at their phone with their fingers moving around. They prefer to be with a mouse in their hand, with a larger screen. Maybe they have some eyesight issues. Maybe that makes it easier for them. So we'll see. We'll see if Upland can bring that back. But I'm going to posit what I have said before on treasure hunting. Treasure hunting at one point was extremely lucrative. It was taken advantage of by a pretty small number of people, especially when we talked about competitors. It was a relatively small number of people who were able to claim the vast majority of competitives. At that point, it became a relatively limited community, and it was profitable. It's extremely profitable for that small number of people. It wasn't what was overall intended by the game of Upland. It wasn't meant to be a main profit center for a small number of people. It was meant to be distributive. It was meant to be a level of gameplay for a lot of people to participate in. And they've gone back and forth with different ways of using cooldowns to manage who's hunting and when. They've done different things to manage which cities are huntable at what time to discourage people from building up massive hunting grids in one specific city and not in others. There's been a lot that Upland has tried to do with treasure hunting, and whether or not it evolves, whether or not it changes, I think it has a part in the history of the game of Upland. If Upland continues to make changes that ultimately make it so it's not lucrative for a small number of people anymore, or the small number of people who were really treating it that way, I could definitely understand them kind of moving away from the treasure hunt side of things. And ultimately, there are other places to be, and I think that other places falls under the category of continuing to develop layer 2 games. And then when we say games, like real games that are tied into the game of Upland, we already have seen a few real games come in. The Plamo, the Range, with the continued expansion of the fort there, the meta fort continuing to build out there, more games hopefully being added at some point in the future. Seeing that there's other gamified games coming into the space of Upland, things that have tie-in with contests and passes and layer 1 additions where assets can be used on in. There's continuing to be new games to get pulled in. I think that would be more of the focus, hopefully, Upland with more support with those levels of gamification. There are ways to build rewards in there. There's a cost, but the addition or the kind of benefit of that type of gaming is there's really a cost to entry and a prize, or there's a cost to entry and there's a reward. And ultimately, in that type of environment where everybody is putting in entry fees and it's competitive and everyone's getting rewards, a certain number of people rewards, it ends up being some people are profiting more and some people probably are playing the game for the experience and not winning as often. And one of those experiences that we are seeing right now, we do want to encourage people, is Track Hero. Track Hero obviously is a part, doing staked races in Track Hero is a part of the task for this season, for Sizzle season. So we want to make sure we're following those. We did take a look. We have to take a look at the leaderboard being up now for Sizzle season. So definitely go and check your spot in Sizzle season. We'll review the Sizzle seasons later in the month again. We're getting close. We're not quite there yet. We'll be there the next couple of days to say, hey, if you want to have 25 days of having your structure ornament up, now's the last day to do so. We have a couple days left to do that. If you don't have a structure ornament yet for Sizzle season, go and purchase one. Go and get one. There are some UGC ones that are out there. Obviously, there are still some of the ones that Upland had put out there in USD. Again, yes, I understand it's USD, but available in USD to buy those structure ornaments. Buy one for Sizzle season, get it up, have it up on a collection property, leave it there for 25 days. Get that check mark on the task for Sizzle season, the gamified earnings for Sizzle season. So you can make sure you're getting your multiplier, make sure you're getting the dividend, the max dividend, and then B is you're getting that multiplier if you owned or earned Sparklet in the game of Upland and held it in the game of Upland. that is your multiplier. That is your opportunity to continue to increase that pile. You get a larger airdrop for Sparklet. Something definitely worth watching. I mean to say, I fear it's dead. We're talking about treasure hunting, Swarley. I said it a long time ago. I thought that we were going to de-emphasize treasure hunting to the point that the majority of the people who were looking at it as their main gameplay and upland would see it as different enough from what they wanted that it was not going to make sense for them to do it anymore. If it's there and the standards are maybe not lucrative, but the standards are there as a participatory event for the people who want to participate with rewards for doing well, that's going to always be there. Hopefully that's going to be there as an opportunity, people being able to continue to participate that way. But yes, if the rewards are scaled down, or there is an escalating cost to keep people from doing 35 of the treasure hunts a day with the same level of profitability, I understand there's going to be people who are going to back away from it. But if we look at what the overall goal was with participation of a broad number of people, I think that they're still maybe getting closer to that goal. I don't know if there's more people that jump in and play with less people who were previously dominant in the system. I don't know what that looks like, but I do know that again, this was always on the roadmap for treasure hunting. I think on the roadmap for treasure hunting was always, as there were other things to do, it would be de-emphasized. It would be less exciting and maybe less lucrative, because let's be honest, for a period of time, treasure hunting was way too lucrative. I remember when people were taking out a spark and change per week. Again, there was some, not exploits, but there was some glitches in the way that was being done, and people were able to take a ton of Sparklet out, or Spark at the time, out for a while. And again, it's over, right? That's the history. That's the history of the game of Upland. Continues to change. Treasure hunting is dead. It's been since TGE. I fear that with the property market underdeveloped. Yes, and again, with the TGE, Swarley, I agree. The concept that people are looking at treasure hunting differently. If Spark was your reward, now you look at the value of Spark. Now people, if they were saying, my time is worth this much, I'm looking at Spark is worth this much, that's my payoff. Now the way Upland has those rewards, they didn't step up those rewards at all from what they had been previously. So yeah, the monetary value is much lower. People see it as a lower profitability. So seeing a lower profitability, the people who are doing it just for the profit, the people who are doing it for the fun and for the enjoyment and getting the prize as a prize, those are some of the people who may stay and still be in treasure hunting for a bit here. And maybe we'll see some of those people stick around. King Cody saying comp hunting is very profitable still. This only limits standard hunting for the casuals, in my honest. Again, there are people who do the grind. There's people who do the grind for profitability. They do as many treasure hunts as they can, and they look at their profits and losses, and they say, I took in 15,319 OPEX today. My costs in the send fees and in the starts was 4,618 OPEX. This is my profit. Oh, by the way, I got 40 Sparklet. Stop at not a bad time if you're doing it as a game. So there are people who do that grind and continue that grind. But when that 40 Sparklet went from having this speculative value of blank to now that 40 Sparklet, because there is actually a market, there's actually an exchange, there's actually ways for people to sell that Sparklet, now has a codified value. Again, let's call it what a real reward is, a 20 Sparklet. And at 20 Sparklet, we know that Sparklet is 4 cents right now. So 80 cents. And how much work you have to do to get that 80 cents. And that is part of that calculation of, yes, it's less lucrative at this point to do the grind and get what you can out of that hard grind of standards. And then one other thing I look at in treasure hunting to kind of put a capstone on it, maybe not a grave marker, but a capstone on treasure hunting, is if you were doing, purchasing property for the sake of building a grid out, and you were going to continue to do that, and that was a main portion of the game, and you paid significantly over mint price for properties because you were trying to build a grid. And then the game changed the treasure hunting, and it was this big loss for you because you put so much energy into building that grid. I do want to just put that point out there. I do remember years ago, literally years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, when the spark was added and the spark was changed, and the payout was changed. There was things called send fountains, and then there was even treasure fountains where the treasures were actually occurring in the stairs. And people kept buying properties in different places to do those. And the message kept being, be careful about how you build your grid around your expectation of treasure hunting. The rules of treasure hunting will continue to change. That will continue to be the message. 2 years on, 2 years later than that event, we know that's a big deal because now we don't have competitive hunts in some cities for periods of time. Some cities don't have treasure hunting as a non-competitive be set up for a period of time after the save releases. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, that this has always been a rolling ball, and people have been trying to keep up with it, and as long as you can keep up with it, is a significant. It's been significantly lucrative for a number of people, but again, it's always been a moving target. It was always going to change, and it's just changed enough to be less lucrative for a lot of people. And then otherwise, looking forward to a couple of things this couple upcoming couple weeks. Waiting to hear what's going on with NFLPA. Legits again. Love them, hate them, like the NFL. Don't know anything or care anything about the NFL. It was an interesting partnership to begin with. The NFLPA represents the actual players, the players' likenesses and names. It does not represent or have the ability to represent teams specifically. So we don't see team names. We see references to the city in which players play. We see pictures of the players. We see similar colored jerseys, but not the actual jerseys that you would see in the NFL. And ultimately, we can't have game footage because game footage is owned by NFL. So what we end up with was a picture of a player. We could talk about that player, what they've done, what teams they've played on. We have, these plays, these plays that were kind of set here, the mementos that were, these items that were tied to the players or the events of the game. And there's all kinds of excitement around these things and how these have been built out. It's just, there's been promise that people have wanted to see continue to build on that. There's things and opportunities for things that may or may not ever be possible. Things like fantasy sport, which probably doesn't look like it's ever going to be possible. Things like signatures and customization and burning to get a replica. That's finally happened. That happened at the end of last season. So we're going to continue to see how these things develop. But I want to see that announcement hopefully the next couple of weeks. But for tonight, thank you so much for being here. Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. PT. We do this thing. I do want to put out that on Tuesdays and Fridays, we still do the Upland Plaza. I would love the Upland Plaza to be a larger, more happening experience than it is. The reality is YouTube is a great place to watch, as is Twitter. Love to see you there. And if you're in the Upland Cafe Discord, it's still there in voice only. If you don't want to look at something, you just want to listen, I don't blame you. You won't see the graphics, you won't see the images, but you can hear in your mind and see in your mind's eye maybe. But thank you so much for being here. If you're in the Upland Cafe, feel free to unmute your mics. The floor is yours.